On the broadcast tonight, President Park Geun-hye embarks on a 6-day tour of Central Asia to forge closer ties with the region and realize her Eurasia Initiative. And with the president's nomination of a new finance minister, is a change in the nation's monetary policy coming? What about the Park administration's deregulation drive? We speak to an expert. And the Sunni extremist group taking up territory across Iraq posts graphic photos online that appear to show its fighters massacring Iraqi soldiers. And after a frantic opening to the World Cup in Brazil with entertainment and goals aplenty, one of its gold-plated stars announces his arrival in style, giving Argentina a win while France benefits from what's called goal line technology. Early edition begins now.
I see trees of green, red roses.
늘 남편 먼저,
I see them
늘 자식 먼저.
for me and
레이디 퍼스트라는 말을 믿고 살아온 당신. 오늘만큼은 세상 누구보다 당신이 먼저입니다.
한 분 한 분 특별하게 모시겠습니다.
Excellence in Flight, Korean Air.
It is 5 a.m. in New York, 4 p.m. in Bangkok, and 6 on Monday, the 16th of June here in Seoul. Hello, this is Early Edition at 6, live from Seoul. I'm Moon Gon-young.
And I'm Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us. We begin with President Park Geun-hye's tour of Central Asia.
Now, she embarked on a week-long trip earlier this morning and is due to arrive in Tashkent in about half an hour or so. During her trip to Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan, the Korean leader will seek more business opportunities for Korean businesses and promote her Eurasia Energy and Infrastructure Initiative.
Our presidential office correspondent Choi Yoo-sun gives us a preview of the presidential trip.
President Park embarks on state visits to Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan this week.
The president looks forward to enhancing cooperation with the Central Asian countries by expanding Korean businesses' economic projects in the region and reaffirming trust and ties with the heads of visiting nations.
In Tashkent, the Korean president and her Uzbek counterpart will seek ways to bolster their strategic partnership. There are currently some $8 billion worth of joint projects underway, such as a gas field development and chemical complex construction, and Seoul hopes to go beyond into areas of renewable energy and textiles. President Park, who has proposed an initiative that will link energy and infrastructure in Eurasia, will also visit Samarkand, a city that was at the heart of the Silk Road. In Astana, the Korean leader and her Kazakh counterpart will discuss current projects worth roughly $10 billion, including construction of a thermal plant and petrochemical complex. Seoul will sign a deal to participate in Astana's rail development, with hopes it will lay the groundwork for President Park's Eurasia Initiative. There will be talks on the North Korean nuclear issue, since Kazakhstan achieved significant growth after voluntarily giving up its nuclear arms. President Park will be visiting Turkmenistan for the first time as a Korean leader, where she plans to ask the country to support Korean firms seeking to participate in large-scale infrastructure projects in the gas-rich nation. During her 6-day tour, the Korean president also plans to meet with ethnic Koreans living in the three countries and pledge her support for active cultural exchanges with the region. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, on a slightly different note, new data suggests that world powers are scaling back on their nuclear weapons arsenals. Now, according to an annual report released Monday by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, 9 countries held claim to around 16,300 nuclear warheads in early 2014, down 5.6% from the previous year. The report shows that the U.S. and Russia possesses about 93% of the world's nuclear weapons, most of them dating back to the Cold War. The 7 other nuclear states were identified as Britain, France, China, Pakistan, India, Israel, and North Korea. Pyongyang, according to the report, has 6 to 8 nuclear warheads in its arsenal. South Korea, meanwhile, repatriated 5 North Korean fishermen who were rescued last Friday in a fishing boat that was sinking in waters near the South Korea-controlled Dokdo Island. The Unification Ministry here says that the North Koreans, ranging in age from their 20s to 40s, were repatriated at around 4 p.m. Korea time through the truce village of Panmunjom. Now, all 5 of them had said that they wanted to be returned back to the north, and this comes a couple of weeks after 3 other North Korean fishermen were picked up in South Korean waters. Pyongyang demanded they all be returned, but South Korean authorities allowed 2 to stay behind per their request.
South Korea's rival political parties are at loggerheads as usual, this time wrangling over whether to go ahead with the Prime Minister-designate Moon Chang-geuk's confirmation hearings amid the increasingly heated debate over his controversial views and comments on history. Here's our Kim Young-gil with more.
A motion calling for parliamentary confirmation of the new Prime Minister nominee, Moon Chang-geuk, will be submitted to the National Assembly on Tuesday. Once the request is filed, legislators have 20 days to vote on the appointment. The ruling Saenuri Party has jumped to Moon's defense, saying he needs to be given a chance to be vetted through a confirmation hearing. Party spokesperson Park Tae-chul accused the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, or NPAD, of not giving Moon a chance.
The main opposition bloc is not even giving the nominee a chance to be questioned on stage. Not holding a confirmation hearing is anti-democratic and goes against the people's will.
The ruling party has attacked the opposition bloc, accusing it of using the controversy surrounding Moon to score political points. However, the NPAD, which has been concentrating fire on Moon's questionable comments regarding historical issues, continues to demand his withdrawal.
If Moon stays on, it will be an insult to the people, turn Korea into a pathetic nation, cast doubt on President Park's concept of a nation, and bring ridicule to the Saenuri Party.
In a lecture delivered at his church a few years ago, Moon said Japan's colonization of Korea and the division of the Korean peninsula was all part of God's will. The National Assembly will hold a 3-day interpellation session starting Wednesday, signaling the start of June's extraordinary session. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Now, President Park Geun-hye replaced her finance minister with a 3-term member of parliament and close policy confidant in a cabinet reshuffle on Friday in the aftermath of a ferry disaster that, of course, killed more than 300 people.
So what does the president have in mind regarding the nation's economic direction for the remainder of her term, and what can we expect from the new economic team? Let's try getting some experts' view. For that, we have Dr. Song Won-gun joining us live via Skype. Dr. Song is a senior researcher at the Federation of Korean Industries.
And of course, Deputy Secretary General. Dr. Song, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Now let's try reading into the president's pick to head her economic team. We know that President Park has been placing extra emphasis on reviving the economy, not only as she took office last year, but especially following the ferry disaster in April. Now, her pick as a new finance minister and deputy prime minister for economy, Choi Kyung-hwan, he's served as industry and energy minister and the ruling party parliamentary floor leader before. In your view, what does the president have in mind in bringing him to this post?
At first, I think this new economic team, including Mr. Choi Kyung-hwan, can be evaluated as a good selection because first, these people, including Mr. Choi Kyung-hwan and Chief Economic Advisor, used to be very close to the president and used to advise the president about economic policies. So we could expect that there are a few difficulties in the communication within the administration, and an efficient decision-making process for economic policies will be expected. Deputy Prime Minister nominee Choi Kyung-hwan is appropriate for leading this new economic team. He is not only an experienced official and economist, but also an experienced politician. So he knows the market and he knows the politics. So far, the main problem of the economic team is the lack of leadership and slow decision-making. I think that the president might think that Mr. Choi is capable of solving these problems easily. That is the reason why the president chose him as the deputy prime minister.
Well, easily, I'm not so sure. Mr. Che definitely has some challenges ahead of him, stimulating domestic demand and creating jobs. The finance minister nominee is known to be a pro-growth economist, and there are already speculations that he may try to lower the central bank's interest rate. It's been on hold at 2.5% for 13 straight months. Of course, then, he may come in conflict with Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol.
He already emphasized the need of stimulating the economy, but there are several measures for stimulating the economy, and monetary policy is one of these measures. The monetary policy should be established and implemented by the central bank, Bank of Korea. That is the Bank of Korea's sole right. Even the deputy prime minister cannot intervene in the decision-making and implementing of monetary policy. So officially, there is no chance of his coming in conflict with the Bank of Korea's governor. But they could cooperate with each other to boost the economy. If the current state of the domestic economy continues to stagnate, it is possible that the Bank of Korea will consider to lower the interest rate. So it depends on the prospects for the economy, and it is very unlikely that we will see the conflict between the deputy prime minister and the Bank of Korea's governor.
Well, Dr. Song, the new deputy prime minister nominee told reporters over the weekend that he thinks some borrowing regulations relating to LTV and DTI, of course, loan-to-value ratio and debt-to-income ratio, respectively, should be eased to some extent to boost the sluggish real estate market. Your thoughts on that? I mean, would that not ease the easing of these regulations? Would that not only worsen the already huge household debt in this country?
The purpose of introducing the regulations on LTV and DTI was to limit the demand for borrowing in the time of housing market boom. But since global financial crisis broke out in 2008, the housing market has been going through the deep recession. So the measures we need right now are not to limit housing demand, but to boost the housing market. The regulations on LTV and DTI are not the appropriate and timely measures anymore, so the easing of these regulations is the right direction. But household debt problem can be worsened not by the easing of these regulations, but by the continuation of housing market recession. You know, if the housing price continues to fall, the possibility of household debt default will go up. In this case, the increase in household debt default will make financial institutions, including banks, weaker, and then we might face another financial and economic crisis. So right now, we need measures for reviving housing market instead of having the measures for limiting housing demand.
Well, Dr. Song Won-gun, Deputy Secretary General of the Federation of Korean Industries, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you very much.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gon-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Now on to the deepening crisis in Iraq. As radical Islamist insurgents take strides towards Baghdad, they have released graphic photos of scores of executed Iraqi troops.
Now we warn you, some of the images you're about to see are disturbing, not for the faint of hearts. Our Shin Se-min reports.
These are images that seemingly show militants from the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or ISIL, taking aim at captured Iraqi soldiers. The photos, posted on a militant website on Saturday, end with the final image showing the bodies of the captured drenched in blood after being shot. Iraq's chief military spokesman confirmed the authenticity of the photos and said the images showed around 170 Iraqi troops who had been killed. The militants claim to have executed 1,700 Iraqi soldiers, but the government would not confirm the information. The militant forces are spreading to northwest of the country after taking over a number of key cities, including Mosul, the second largest city in the country. The Iraqi government has reinforced defenses around the capital. However, a series of explosions inside Baghdad killed over a dozen and left more than 40 injured. And according to a U.S. military official, around 150 U.S. Marines have been sent to Baghdad to help bolster security at the U.S. Embassy. Most of the staff are being evacuated to safer parts of Iraq or to neighboring Jordan. U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel ordered the USS George H.W. Bush to the Persian Gulf on Saturday, raising the possibility of imminent U.S. airstrikes. U.S. President Barack Obama, however, said on Friday that any strike in Iraq will have to be coordinated with a thorough plan from Iraq's political leaders to set aside their sectarian differences. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's foreign ministry says all 1,300 or so South Korean nationals in Iraq are currently in regions that are considered relatively safe, like the capital, Baghdad.
The ministry also said 24 nationals who had been situated in dangerous regions have been relocated to safer areas or have returned to Korea. It said the South Korean government has formed a special task force to monitor the safety of South Koreans in the country on a day-to-day basis.
Now, the Korean government says it'll react if Japan waters down a historical apology for the sexual enslavement of women before and during World War II.
Japan is expected to announce the review sometime this week of the Kono statement. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
The Korean government will take action if Japan announces a verification that hurts the spirit of a historic apology regarding the forceful mobilization of Korean women as sex slaves. A government official on Sunday expressed Korea's stance on the matter, saying that it will present authoritative documents, both domestic and foreign, that will prove Japan responsible in the historic truth about the wartime sexual slavery issue if Japan hurts the spirit of the Kono statement. The 1993 Kono statement, named after Yohei Kono, the chief cabinet secretary at the time, acknowledges that the Japanese army was involved in recruiting women to serve in frontline brothels. Seoul's reaction comes after a Japanese media reports that the Abe administration will submit its verification to the National Diet soon. The Japanese government has set up a panel to verify the events leading to the historical apology. The Korean official added that the Kono statement was drawn up after an independent investigation by the Japanese government based on on-site inquiries, official documents, and testimonies from Japanese soldiers, related officials, and victims of sexual slavery. Korea has long pressed Japan to address the grievances of victims of Japan's wartime sex slavery by offering a formal apology and providing them with compensation. Japan has refused to do so, saying the issue was resolved by a 1965 treaty. Time is running out for the 54 surviving Korean victims, whose average age is 88. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, Japan's chief cabinet secretary told reporters earlier this afternoon that the Japanese government was willing to provide an explanation of their review of the Kono statement upon Korea's request. Now, Daniel, you and I probably will not be able to avoid having the fingers pointed at us when it comes to this next report. You know, we knew it all along, but fresh data provided by the CIA serves as a reminder that Korea has one of the lowest fertility rates among the world's advanced economies.
So we're not alone. Well, Korean government is all too aware that it stands as a clear and present threat to future economic growth. Measures have been implemented to address the problem, but obviously they aren't proving to be that effective. Here's our Connie Kim with more.
Low employment rates, smaller incomes, and difficulties finding places to live. It's a recipe that has resulted in Korea having one of the lowest fertility rates in the OECD. Data recently released by the World Factbook produced by the Central Intelligence Agency estimates Korea's total fertility rate at 1.25, which represents the number of children a mother is expected to have over her lifetime. Topping the list were the African countries of Niger, Mali, and Burundi. Israel, Mexico, and France had the highest rates among the OECD. Now, experts say the low birth rate in Korea comes from a combination of factors.
The low fertility rate can be seen among married couples and those who are not married. Among the unmarried, High youth unemployment rates and low incomes are the major reasons for putting off marriage. Among married couples, the financial hardships associated with raising kids act as a deterrent from getting pregnant.
Last year, 67% of the $14.1 billion spent by the Korean government on raising the nation's fertility rate was funneled into support for childcare. Yang says there is more that can be done.
In 2009, France poured in about 4% of its yearly budget to tackling the low birth rate, while Korea spent only about 1%.
Experts say the low birth rate will ultimately lead to a decrease in the working population, resulting in a slowdown in production and a reduction in consumption, which could bring down Korea's economic growth rate down to about 1.7% in the next 20 years. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Well, the 2014 World Cup is now at full speed and promises even greater excitement in about 7 hours' time when Germany locks horns with Portugal at the Fonte Nova Arena.
But before that, day 4 of the global event was full of excitement. For sure, our sports correspondent Song Ji-sun has a wrap-up. Ji-sun?
Hello to you football fans around the world. Hope you're enjoying all the action on the pitch. Now, the group stage of the tournament is well underway with 11 matches played as of this Monday morning. In Group E, 2 European and Central American countries had their first matches, and in this case, the European team scooped all 3 points, with Switzerland beating Ecuador 2-1 and France beating Honduras 3-0. Now, over in Rio de Janeiro, Argentina is a strong contender for the trophy, but their performance against Bosnia and Herzegovina was a tad underwhelming, given that the Argentina is considered one of the favorites along with Brazil. Now, the South Americans were gifted their first goal when there were barely 3 minutes on the clock. Bosnia's Sead Kolasinac took the dubious honor of scoring the fastest own goal in World Cup's history. Playing within himself in the first half, superstar captain Lionel Messi sealed the victory with a stunning goal in the 65th minute. Bosnia and Herzegovina fared better than expected, even with scoring their first ever goal at the World Cup. Final score in this match, 2-1 Argentina. With that said, let's take a look at the group standings. Now, all teams in groups A to E have played 1 game each, and we haven't seen a single draw just yet. Brazil and Mexico are leading Group A, with Chile and the Netherlands going strong against Spain and Australia in Group B. Colombia and Cote d'Ivoire on the top 2 in Group C over Japan and Greece. Costa Rica and Italy also had 3 points, winning their first matches against Uruguay and England on Saturday, respectively. In Group E, the European teams are leading over the Central and South American squads. Now, the latter groups are still to play their first matches on this Monday. The European football heavyweights Germany and Portugal of Group G, with the first to kick off at 1 p.m. in Salvador, and the second match of Group F, Iran and Nigeria are next up at 4 p.m. Another anticipated match in Group G, the one between the U.S. and Ghana, is set for 7 p.m. That'll be 7 a.m. on Tuesday morning here in Korea. Now, we're definitely seeing a lot of goals in these early days of the World Cup, possibly because of the new ball bazooka, or maybe the strikers just got better. Our Yudian gives us some facts and figures of the World Cup, including something you didn't know about the official ball.
It's every soccer player's dream to play in the World Cup, the most viewed sporting event in the world. There was one player that played a staggering 25 matches in the World Cup, and that's German midfielder Lothar Matthäus. The German legend with the most appearances in the World Cup took part in every World Cup between 1982 and 1998. When it comes to Korea, Park Ji-sung is the country's unforgettable hero. Park scored the winning goal against Portugal at the 2002 World Cup at the age of just 21, making him the youngest Korean player to score a goal at a World Cup finals. If there was a perfect attendance award given out for the World Cup, it would go to Brazil. Brazil is the only nation to have appeared in all 20 World Cups. The soccer mad nation has also picked up the trophy a record 5 times. Brazilian striker Ronaldo holds the record for the most number of goals scored, amassing 15 in 3 tournaments. Since his last World Cup in 2006, Ronaldo's record remains untouched, but that could change over the next month as Germany's Miroslav Klose is just 1 goal behind. The Brazuca, the official ball for this year's tournament, is made up of just 6 panels, the smallest number of panels used for a soccer ball ever. With fewer stitches needed, experts are calling it the most stable and accurate ball ever. 유리안, 아리랑 뉴스.
And that's all from us. To our viewers in Korea, have a good rest of the evening. Thank you for watching. This has been Daniel Che.
And I'm Moon Gun-young. To those of you in other parts of the world, have a great start to your day and enjoy the games in the next few hours. And we hope to see you right back here same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.